And welcome everybody to the 5 Reasons Sports Network's own Yard Prep. I am your host, Louis Sung, and I am joined by Michael Quirk, who we're going to talk about the Miami Dolphins versus the Cincinnati Bengals. This is national television, well, national streaming anyway. So we are going to do Thursday night football talk here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Really glad to have you here, Michael. How are we doing?
I'll be honest, a little nervous. Nervous, and my trepidation was proven to be unwarranted on Sunday. I was loud wrong on the pregame show a couple days ago, and I'm hoping that's the case again.
I mean, hey, listen, I personally feel like the Miami Dolphins have a really good shot at winning this game. I personally think that after everything we've seen, them beating the Baltimore Ravens, them beating the New England Patriots, them beating the Buffalo Bills, even on a short week, I find myself struggling to think, oh, well, this is the game where it's absolutely going to fall to pieces. Like, I understand it's a short week, but the Bengals also had a short week. They're also playing Thursday night football, so they're tired too. Not quite as tired because they weren't roasting underneath the South Florida sun. I digress. But there is something to be said about just having that raw ability to show teamwork, that raw ability to be resilient. That's what these Miami Dolphins are proving that they have. And before we get too much further into it, I just want to make sure that we acknowledge the fact that we, of course, as always, have our sponsors. That is prizepicks.com. Prizepicks.com is a revolutionary fantasy platform where you can pick up to 5 different players across professional sports leagues, whether that's the NFL, the MLB, the NBA, the NHL, whatever you want. One of each, all the same league. It's up to you to decide. All you have to do is choose the over or the under on those individual players' fantasy point projections. If you want to choose the over on Tyreek Hill having 70 yards catching, that's up to you to decide. If you want to pick the under on Tua Tagovailoa throwing under 260 yards, up to you as well. Or if you could just go with classic fantasy point projections, it's all your choice. So with offers like the ones that they gave me, the one time I won, where Tom Brady only had to throw 1 yard and I would win. Easy to win there. It's hard to justify not signing up. Use the promo code 5, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. Again, that's promo code 5, FIVE, prizepicks.com. All right, so let's go ahead and get a little bit further into this. Obviously, the Miami Dolphins, Tua Tagovailoa is expected to start. And we saw so in the unfortunately walkthrough, not so private anymore, walkthroughs that happen at that stadium. But I just want to get into that for just one moment. And I just find it so, what's the word? I'm trying to think of what the right word is, because convenient is not a good word. Appropriate is not a good word. I want to say that it was hysterical, hilarious. Those are words that I think would be using, because instead of calling security, which is what any sane person would do in this situation, when you see that there's somebody recording all your practice, the entire practice, right? Like, who wouldn't do that? Belichick would do that in a heartbeat, I'm sure. Pretty much any coach would do that. Here's what Mike McDaniel does. Mike McDaniel decides, hey, you, person who would normally be giving us a penalty if you were standing there, you come over here and you just run around the field doing a thing. Pretend that you're in the play. And all of a sudden, everything that they were looking at, you don't know who's the decoy. You don't know who's the fake person. The Dolphins know, but nobody watching does. That just screams that this man is a little troll in the best possible way. Mike McDaniel is already my favorite NFL coach simply because he has fun with it. He's enjoying the process. Unlike a lot of other coaches, you heard about Adam Gase, right? I lost sleep over this. I couldn't see my kids. I wasn't able to go to my wife's birth because I was with Peyton Manning. Like, dude, you sound miserable. Mike McDaniel's not miserable. He's enjoying himself. And so I feel like that has a lot to do with how these Miami Dolphins are responding to everything that's happening. And I think it's going to have something to do with how they perform tonight, because these guys, they're energized in ways that I did not see with the Brian Flores. Yeah, they fought hard. They played hard. But was it fun to watch? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But with these guys, I cannot remember a time so far this season where I'm just like, boy, this is just the worst thing ever. I don't want to watch this anymore.
Yeah, the way that unfolded and the irony with some of the taping with some of the guys from Barstool who were lapping that up. You didn't think of someone else who might have been taping some practices in the past? You don't see any issue with that? I do love the
I mean, don't get me wrong. I have issue with that it happened. But Mike McDaniel's response to it was just so hilarious. And I'm just like, you know what? I don't care anymore. Go ahead and do whatever you want.
Yeah, the whole 12 guys in each play and fake plays. It's fantastic. But I don't think Zach Taylor and the Bengals are losing any sleep of the validity of those videos. But yeah, it was. I don't know. I don't understand why people were hyping this guy up, that he comes to Twitter to brag about it, and then people said this is great and so forth. But like you said, that's not going to have any impact on tonight's game, and it'll be interesting to see what Zach Taylor has for the Dolphins. But I don't think he was waiting by for any Barstool Cincinnati videos to come out before he got the game plan together.
And that's the thing we have to think about now. What exactly is the Miami Dolphins game plan? Are we going to rely on Tua Tagovailoa, who is dealing with a back injury? He is dealing with an ankle injury. We don't know how loose or how tight he's going to end up being. Hopefully everything is just fine. I'm sure he's played through worse and performed. I want to also point out Alabama, his whole body was practically falling to pieces. He wasn't even supposed to be out there, and he still performed. He didn't win, unfortunately. He couldn't quite pull that off, but it was still an amazing feat just on its own. And so now I can't help but think to myself, this is nothing as far as Tua playing through pain. I'm sure that he could get this job done. I'm sure he was hurting a lot more the day of that it happened. So now he's had some time to rest. He's had some time to heal up. I don't think I have anything to worry about as far as Tua is concerned. Teron Armstead, I haven't seen any indications that he's not going to play. The whole he did not practice thing doesn't bother me. He wasn't practicing all throughout the preseason. He was barely practicing in training camp. This veteran rest day thing that McDaniel has going on, they're like, you're Teron Armstead. We already know that you're good. We don't have to worry about you. You just sit this week out and you just go block whoever the Bengals throw at you this week, okay? That's what I think they did with that, so I'm not worried about Teron Armstead. Anybody else, Xavier Howard, I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to be playing. Javon Holland probably going to play. All these guys, I'm trying to think of who is really in danger of not playing this week. And obviously, we'll see the inactives list a lot later, and we'll see what ultimately comes of that. But like besides Tua and Armstead, aside from like Tyreek Hill, who I don't think was even a concern, Jalen Waddle, maybe his groin, maybe they're worried about that. And that would be a hit. But you still have Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
So surely there's going to be guys they're going to double Tyreek. And Tua's just going to have to hit someone else. River Craycraft just got added to the active roster. Maybe he'll throw another touchdown to him tonight. So he seems to have a knack for finding the end zone. So quite frankly, if we lose Jalen Waddle, I don't think it's something that's going to break the game for Miami, because while he's such a big help, he's such a weapon. It's not like the Miami Dolphins suddenly have nothing. You still have one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, one of the best weapons all around in the NFL. And if not, well, I guess you can start throwing to Mike Gesicki a little bit more, which, what a horrible thing to do. Like, didn't Mike Gesicki have an amazing game against the Bengals last time they met? Who's to say he can't do it again? I don't think they have anything to worry about. I think this game is very, very winnable for Miami.
Yeah, the only, and of course, like you said, there's nothing going on with Tyreek, and outside of Tua, who is absolutely who you cannot lose, especially when you saw Teddy Bridgewater come in last week with eyes as wide as Chase Daniel when he's called upon. He's like, hey, I'm supposed to be over there holding the clipboard. What are you calling on me for? I'm Chase Daniel. The only ones I'd be worried about is, of course, Armstead, but as you mentioned, he looks to be a full go tonight. Greg Little kept grabbing his hand in Sunday's game, and he's looked fantastic at right tackle. A lot of people saying that he's not going to give that job back once Austin Jackson comes back. And lest we forget, that was a second-round pick. This isn't some guy who came out of nowhere in Greg Little. Robert Hunt was a little banged up, but I haven't seen anything to indicate that either of them will miss tonight's game. But those would be a bit of a blow to me, because when you're getting down to Coleman and Jones and so forth, that's when I get a little worried.
I mean, that's valid. The offensive line is the big deal. But I think as long as you have Teron Armstead, I think there's still a good shot, because he can, at the very least, he can kind of control everything that's going on that side. And probably more than anything, if Greg Little can't go, Robert Hunt is just going to kick outside to right tackle anyway, and he'll be better than Larnell Coleman in that role. Robert Jones will just play right guard, and yeah, there's going to be a drop-off. don't misunderstand me. But the way that this team is functioning right now, I feel like if they get the ball out fast, then and that's the ironic thing if you really think about it. Everybody was making fun of Tua Tagovailoa for being this inside the box, 10 yards or less kind of quarterback who can't throw the deep ball. And all of a sudden, they want to turn Tua Tagovailoa into a 10 yards inside the box who won't throw the deep ball kind of quarterback because they know that they're going to get beat if they let that sort of thing happen. If he sees Tyreek wide open, he even said so. He literally said so, if I'm not mistaken. I think there was literally a quote that said if he sees Tyreek on Eli Apple one-on-one, he's going to let it fly. Because if you have Tyreek Hill versus Eli Apple, which I guarantee you any defensive coordinator worth their salt. Is it still Lou Anarumo in Cincinnati who's the defensive coordinator for the Bengals? I believe it is.
Yeah.
So Lou Anarumo knows. He's not a dumb person. He knows what he's doing. If Eli Apple ever ends up one-on-one with Tyreek Hill, something went horribly, horribly wrong, which ironically enough, would actually be even better for Tua because that would even make it even more that he's going to take that shot because, it's a busted coverage, which somehow makes it so that the play doesn't count or something. That only happens for Tua. That rule only applies to Tua for some reason because Tom Brady would notice busted coverages, launch it out there, and he would be praised for noticing the busted coverage. Just saying.
One of my favorite Tua shifts was on Sunday, which was some of the Bills fans going from chanting Tua sucks in a game he was not playing in to then saying, oh, the Dolphins are only winning this game because they rushed Tua back in there. Without Tua, they wouldn't have won this game. Funny about that whole he sucks thing, huh?
Yeah, it's almost like, he doesn't suck. It's just you find it so like this is what happens when a narrative becomes formed. This is the definition of a narrative being developed. You had Tua Tagovailoa. The media says he's no good. He's soft-armed. To this day, Skip Bayless still says he soft-armed it. He soft-armed the deep ball to Jalen. It was a perfect pass right in his breadbasket. What do you mean soft-armed it? If he had thrown it as hard as Josh Allen could have thrown it, it would have flown over his head. What are you talking about? And so the whole thing is hysterical. It really, really is. Like, they're so desperate to make it seem like Tua is still in this little box that they've put him in that says he's not good, he won't be good. And I think, quite frankly, they are scared to death that they may actually have to talk about the Miami Dolphins on more segments. They may actually have to stop talking about the Dallas Cowboys and the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New England Patriots. I am sure there's so many people in those rooms that are so upset that the New England Patriots are irrelevant now. They're so upset. So they're going to try to pivot to the Buffalo Bills, but they can't get rid of the Dolphins. Suddenly the market is shifting towards the Dolphins and they hate it. They can't stand it. That's why they're hanging on to it for so long. Keyshawn Johnson, I only like big players. I'm like, dude, are you out of your mind? You're saying that on live television. You're basically saying, I don't like him because he doesn't look like me. That's basically what it sounds like you're saying. Because that's what Keyshawn Johnson was. He was like the big body, super wide receiver guy. And now you're basically saying that Tua's too small. Is Russell Wilson too small? Is he? No. Why not? Because he's Russell Wilson. He's Tua Wilson. Same guy. Not in how they play, but as you want to talk about body proportions, what are you talking about? Chad Marchione, Fins Up, thank you very much for tuning into our pregame show. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started into what the keys of the game are. Michael, what are your keys for this game? What do the Dolphins need to accomplish if they're going to win this game in your eyes?
When we were coming into the season, all preseason and then leading into that first game against the Patriots, I had high hopes for what this pass rush could be. Jalen Phillips has been winning a lot of matchups, but has not been getting home. Of course, Andrew Van Ginkel dealing with his issues. And then you have Melvin Ingram, who's actually been the dominant pass rusher for the Dolphins, the AFC Defensive Player of the Month, Emmanuel Ogbah, that you want to see them put together a dominant performance. You want to see them wreck some games of getting pressure with just a couple guys going after the quarterback, not running an engage 8 on the opposing offense. But if there's ever an offensive line to do that to, it is this Bengals offensive line. And for anyone who hasn't been paying attention to the Bengals so far this year, but is a Dolphins fan that was dying for La'el Collins, in the offseason, wait till you see how he looks. Because Collins and that entire offensive line have just been turnstiles this year. So for me, the Dolphins are going to have to dominate the line of scrimmage on that end and get to Burrow and force him to make turnovers, which guess what? For all the acclaim that Burrow and Herbert are getting when they're trying to champion these two up and push Tua down, Burrow turns the ball over a lot. He takes a ton of sacks. So it's not just on the offensive line. He takes a ton of sacks as well. Get the Bengals in those long down and distance situations. And then on the other side of the ball, I want to see the Dolphins do what they did to the Ravens in terms of stretching the field wide, making those defensive backs run down. Because forever in football, we've thought about you run the ball the first 3 quarters, and then they're tired and you just run it down their throats in the fourth. The Dolphins are flipping that on its head and saying, we're going to pass and run that secondary here, there, everywhere, in motion and deep routes and so forth, and wear their ass out. And then in the fourth quarter, that's when we eat. That was a part of that 28-point fourth quarter against Baltimore. And you can do that same sort of thing to this Bengals secondary. I know they have a few more guys than that Ravens secondary has, even though I'm a big Marlon Humphrey guy. But I think if they can do that, that's when you see the Dolphins really take advantage of them. And like you said, oh my God, if it's ever an Eli Apple, Tyreek Hill, just close your eyes and throw it to him, and you'll be fine.
That's how I feel too, honestly. I think, well, you say dominate the line of scrimmage. I'm thinking just keep doing what you're doing on offense, quite frankly. Like this, I don't even want the defense to be on the field most of this night. Like, I'm sure that they could dominate the line of scrimmage. Lyle Collins playing right tackle, at least according to what I've been hearing, is terrible, absolutely terrible. And so, but mind you, he played on the left side most of the time, if I'm not mistaken. He played left guard for the Cowboys for a little bit.
Yeah, he played a couple different spots for them, and that was a big selling point with him. And what you usually see with the Dolphins looking for is versatility.
And you know, but you know what though? But you know what? We've already heard many times. Jermon Bushrod even said that flipping over to one side. Jesse Davis has said the same thing.
I was going to say Jesse Davis was versatile.
Like, yes, flipping over, and he said so. Flipping over from one side to the other is not as easy as it seems. So maybe for Greg Little, it's like, oh, the light suddenly came on. Now he's the right tackle. Interesting. But I digress. So now we have the Miami Dolphins. They can score on anybody. All they have to do is just take whatever the defense gives them, whatever that might be, whether it's a deep shot down the field, whether that's dinking and dunking, which they seem to want Tua to do all of a sudden. Maybe it's because it'll fit their narrative again. Oh, Tua just dinks and dunks. He can't throw the deep ball. Literally last week, people, I can't wait. I cannot wait to see what happens. Carlos Ortega, we hopefully can get 2 long drives that end in points to begin the game. That would be nice. Yeah, give the defense a little extra time to just not be on the field. It's like, yeah, I'm in uniform, but I'm not out there, so I'm able to catch my breath. Maybe the Bengals will like shine down heat lamps or something just to punish them. Did you see that there were Bills fans literally just rooting for the Bengals just to punish the Dolphins? That's hysterical to me. That's hysterical. They're so hurt. I know they're still upset. They're still so upset. They feel like the game was robbed. They can't get over it. And I don't think they will get over it until the rematch way on later in the season. So we'll see what happens with that. My key is Tua just needs to get the ball out, get it to Tyreek, get it to whoever's open, and keep doing what he's been doing. So to your point, dominating the line of scrimmage goes a long way in that. Obviously, protecting him is going to be crucial. But he's performed without having that protection before. And let's see if maybe a little bit of adversity will start to show Tua in an even more different light, because we've seen what Tua can do now that he's had parts around him. So let's see what happens. It's almost like an experiment. How many pieces can you take away before Tua starts to look pedestrian again? Because most quarterbacks look pedestrian when you take away all their parts, right? So let's see how many pieces we can take away from Tua before things get a little dicey. Quite frankly, until I'm shown otherwise, I'm not concerned. Like, I think Tyreek's going to play. I think Waddle will play. I don't think they want to sit out, to be perfectly honest. And by the way, there is currently a doctor by the name of Chris Nowinski who's basically saying that if Tua takes the field tonight, which I am almost sure he will, it's going to be a massive step back for concussion care in the NFL. Once again, an independent evaluator went out there with the Dolphins and said, Tua is fine. He cleared the protocol. He can go out there and play. And what exactly is it that you are going to investigate? The Dolphins? For what? They didn't have are you going to try to investigate whether they had a gun to the head of the evaluator that says you better clear him or else? Like, I sincerely doubt that there's anything quite like that. I think that this is just, they're upset that it happened. It's a bad look, don't get me wrong, Tua wobbling around and then coming back. I didn't think he was going to come back. I thought the game was over. Whatever. It was like we can diagnose things by watching him on the field. I have another doctor friend, my good friend Daniel Martinez, who said that you can't fake stuff like that. His eyeballs would have, his pupils would have been dilated, stuff like that. And so you're going to stare at what you saw on the television and make a diagnosis based on that. I guarantee you that if this had been a fraud, somebody would have leaked it by now. Somebody would have been a whistleblower and said, no, Tua is absolutely concussed. This is all a phony sham, and the Dolphins need to be punished. That hasn't happened. You know why? Because it probably didn't happen. You can't lie about this stuff. And if you did lie about it, guess what? It will come out. It will come out.
There are talking heads all over who, when metaphorical gun is at their head, they say you have to talk Dolphins at some point. What do they want to do? Talk about anything other than the Dolphins being a legitimate. This is not beating Mickey Mouse teams in the NFL. Even if you do think there are Mickey Mouse teams in the NFL, they beat one of the two best coaches of all time in Week 1. They go
the Super Bowl favorites.
Yeah, you beat the Super Bowl favorites,
and now they're playing the Super Bowl runners-up.
And not to mention the guy who's running away with the MVP at the moment. But have to say, when Tua has a 6-touchdown game, instead of just saying, you know what? Maybe you need weapons in an offensive line and a decent head coach and play caller to be a good quarterback in the NFL. Maybe you have to get fully healthy to be a good quarterback in the NFL.
Exactly.
Saying, hey, maybe we called this race a little too soon. Maybe just let it play out. No. They want to say, oh, he underthrew Tyreek on those 2 deep balls. And the people even saying it was a bad throw to Jalen Waddle are asinine. And
it's ridiculous.
Turn it to, oh, yeah, I went to the journalism school at Northwestern, so I feel qualified from afar, watching on TV, not talking to anyone in the Dolphins organization, to diagnose that man with a concussion. I know more. And you know what? That Mike McDaniel, he will win at all costs. He would throw Tua to the wolves to win Thursday Night Football. I mean, just get the hell out of here with some of these narratives.
All right. So let's go ahead and we'll do our predictions for the game, and then we'll call it here. So what do you think the scores end up being, Michael? I know you said you had trepidations, but can you convince yourself that Miami's going to win?
Yeah, I've had an angel and devil going at me all day, but I really think Tua is going to have himself a day. And I think this is, as we saw in the comments, this could be Jalen Phillips' breakout game of the year. So I'm going to go 27-23 Dolphins.
All right. So good for you. You convinced yourself they're going to win. I like that. Personally, I think they're going to win too. And I'm just going to steal your score, 27-23, because I think that's a good, decent score. So maybe we'll both be right. So thank you all so much for joining us. If you are local, you will be able to watch the game on WSFL 39. So you'll be able to watch that. And then later on that night on that same channel, I will actually be live on WSFL talking all things about the post-game show, everything that happened there. So I'm actually in the green room right now at the studio where they are going to be doing the show. So make sure you tune in on that. But if you don't have the ability to watch that, make sure that you are going to be here at 5 Reasons Sports Network for the final yard, because I know that my guys are going to be holding it down here while I'm over here. So thank you all so much for joining us once again. Thank you once again to Prize Picks for being our sponsor. Use the promo code 5, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit. I personally would just go ahead and just choose the over, and both Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Just choose a stat. It doesn't matter. Tua's going to get it to them today. All right. Thank you all so much for joining us, and we'll see you all next time.